What's going on YouTube? Today we got a deck profile of the Ancient Gear deck that I played at Locals yesterday. Deck performed very well. It was a lot of fun. Um, Ended up getting the win, so that's cool too. Yeah, deck is sweet. There are some changes I would like to make to this deck going forward that I'll mention in this video. But I would also like to shout out friend Marshall for giving me all the cards, like the older bulk stuff that I didn't have for it. But yeah, deck is a lot of fun. I highly recommend trying it if you got the cards laying around. Otherwise, this deck is very expensive now for no particular reason, but yeah, we'll go on and get into it. So, we got the three Ancient Gear big boys. Unfortunately, you have to play Golem, but consider him like a vanilla brick like Garnet. And then Dark Golem, his effect is extremely relevant. When he is normal or specialed, he adds up to 2 Ancient Gear spells or traps and or Gear Towns, which is very important because Gear Town is a big part to the extension of this deck. But the important effect is while he's on the field or in grave, he counts as Ancient Gear Golem, which a couple of your cards do require that you play actual Ancient Gear Golem or have him on the field. And then we got 3 Wyvern. There's going to be a lot of redundancy here, but this one, when it's normal or special, adds an Ancient Gear spell or trap. But as to with the rest of the archetype, you cannot set spells or traps. Sorry, mind blanked. Next, we got 3 copies of Ancient Gear Tanker. This card is a additional summon. When he is normal or special, you can normal or special. Sorry, when he is normal or special, he specials an Ancient Gear from hand, and then you can destroy a card on your side of the field, face up, and all Ancient Gears the rest of the turn gain 600 attack and defense. And that's important because it states for the rest of this turn, so that means anyone you summon afterwards also gain the boost. But being able to destroy Gear Towns is really important. For 2 ofs, 2 frame, I really kind of want to play 1 because it's pretty heavy in the sense that it causes a discard. Going forward, this is one of the changes. I would switch for Gizmek. I don't remember the name, but it's the frog. The effect is it special summons a machine monster from grave whose attack and defense matches itself while it's in the grave, and that's important for urgent schedule, and I'll explain why later. 2 commander, card nuts. It's basically circular. Unfortunately, you don't really want to play 3 because it's kind of bricky. Kind of want to summon it from the deck, if that makes sense. And then the 1 box. I hated this card all day, to be honest with you. I drew it a lot. I sided it out a lot. But it is very good. And like the games where it comes up. And then 1 Regulus. Regulus is Regulus. I didn't want to play multiples because I am a blind second deck, as Ancient Gear normally is. And in my extra deck, 2 changes I would play would be the Spriggan's Merrymaker and Gigantic Sargus combo. I did not play them because I did not have access to my Merrymaker. I left it at home. For the Ancient Gear spells, I got 3 advance. This is kind of the card that kind of basically makes the deck work. On activation, it searches another Ancient Gear spell or trap. So pretty much everything is redundant, like everything searches spells and traps, but this one has the additional effect where you can tribute a monster, draw a card, and the next time you normal summon an Ancient Gear that requires a tribute, you can not pay the tribute cost. And it's important that you clear the monster on field for another spell I'll show you here in just a moment. But it's also important because Commander here normal summons 1 from hand. So if you have Dark, that's how you get to that. So the next card is Catapult. This is like one of the better cards in the deck. You destroy a face-up card to special summon any Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its conditions. The conditions part don't matter because you will never summon Golem off of this. But you can search you can get this searched off with one of the monsters, the Advance, and then the Advance can search this, and then you contribute one of your Ancient Gears to draw a card, and then catapult away the Advance. Typically, you want to try to leave Advance on the field. Sometimes you just don't have the luxury. It's also important to note that this you cannot set cards the entire turn you activate it, which is important. And then the second effect of this, if you pitch this, or while this is in the grave, you can banish it, to pop a face-up Ancient Gear, or any face-up card to make an Ancient Gear token. That effect comes up a lot of the times when you don't need access to the first effect, or if you get into it late. And next we got 3 Ancient Gear Fortress. This is the best card in the deck. One of the best cards in the deck, I should say. Card is absurd. It's in Italian, so you can't read it, I'm sorry, but your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to your Ancient Gear cards or effects. And then your opponent cannot target your Ancient Gear monsters the turn they were normal or special summoned. And its third effect, because it needed a third one, is when it's destroyed, you can special summon an Ancient Gear from hand or grave. I'm not too sure if it's ignoring summoning conditions, but again, the way that the main deck is constructed, that won't come up. So if it does ignore summoning conditions, cool. But most of the time that doesn't. That never comes up. So Fortress is crazy. Yeah. Then we got 3 Gear Town. It's self-explanatory. There's your combos. There's your extender. And then for the actual other extender is Ancient Gear Fusion. I use this a lot as an extender. There's only like a handful of games where I used it to kill. And then probably one of my favorite cards in the deck, Ancient Gear Duel. Just being able to fusion during the battle phase is really cool with it. Attack 3 times, you become nib proof. And then the last engine, I guess if you want to call it that, is Urgent Schedule. So Urgent Schedule is free in this deck. The downside that you can only attack with machine monsters is obviously irrelevant. And then if you had the Gizmek Frog, the level 4, I just can't remember his name. It might be a level 3, I think. I don't know what level it is. You will summon the Frog and Dark Golem, and then you can link these two into Ballista. And then after you do that, you can use the Frog's effect to banish itself to special this back and trigger its effect to search for 2. And that's why it's important. Like I said, I just didn't have access to it. It didn't come in the mail fast enough, unfortunately. But yeah, Urgent Schedule is crazy. It's just a 1-card Ballista. And with no drawbacks. It's nuts. And then I have a suite of board breakers. I've got 3 Super Poly, 3 Droplet, 3 Imperm. The Super Polys and Droplets are pretty heavy in this deck, and what I mean by that is like same thing with Frame, is like discarding a card is really hard a lot of the time, so you pretty much need every card in your hand to play. But there's a chance that you can play without everything, obviously. Like, Urgent Schedule makes that much more feasible. So I really just wanted, like, the ability to just clear the board, because, like, you don't have as much room for non-engine as Tenpai, so I needed the highest impact, and these two are definitely the highest impact for my locals. And then Imperm is just, like, a free, like, droplet food, if that makes sense. So, like, I can, like, Imperm something and then send it with droplets, so it's still hitting 2 cards instead of needing 3 for droplet. But Imperm is also just like a pseudo board breaker. And that's it for the main deck. 40 cards. It was pretty good. Like I said, I wish I had the Frog. Shout out to Crowler. And then for the fusions, we got Howitzer. This is your time card, but also it's technically an extender. One of this guy, Megaton Golem. You don't really need to make him most of the time, but he's there. Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. The card's crazy. And then the actual kill button. Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. Card is sick. 5,000 attack, attacking 3 times. It's really cool. Piercing. Yeah, it's pretty neat. This is like Tenpai with extra steps and cooler. For the links, 2 Ballista. The effect comes up where you'll try to search and it'll get impermed or veilered, mortared, whatever, and then you need the second one to use as effect to pop. And it does come up from time to time, so I like the option. Realistically, I guess you don't really need to play two, but the second one did come up in a handful of games. Platinum Gadget, this is better than the Clyford Genius because it's an extender. Sometimes you just get stopped in awkward spots. IP, SP, Apollosa. I made all of them. You really only, like, you don't machine lock yourself very often, and you don't ancient gear lock yourself very often at all either. That's the other downside I forgot to mention with Fortress, is you're locked into ancient gears for the turn that use the effect as specials. So you don't get to make these all the time. Sometimes you do. Baguska, never made it. Never got into a position where you need it. I've found a lot of game states where, like, if you're getting stopped and you would make the optimal play would be make Baguska, you just couldn't make it to begin with. So probably would cut this. Photon Lord, made it once. Card was crazy. Thankfully it was not ancient gear locked. Typhon, it's Typhon. And then 2 super poly targets. You could, in theory, play the Dragostapelia because you're playing fusions of your own, but I didn't have the room. The extra deck's pretty tight for this deck, unfortunately. And then for the side was kind of thrown together, but it was like my choices I didn't commit to the main deck that I was just like wanted to have just in case. Like 3 Ash. There are only specific matchups you really want this. The Tenpai matchup is one of them because you need to stop Kaiman. 3 Nibiru, not the greatest in this deck. But, you know, Nibiru, Droplet, and Perm are pretty strong cards together. This is basically just a swap out for when Super Poly wasn't good for the matchup. 2 Bystials. In my last video I talked about how I thought Crow was better. I still think that is objectively true, but the Bystials work better in this deck than Tenpai because it takes a lot more work to kill, so the extra like big beefy body did matter. And then an extra Regulus for when I think I'm going first. Most of the time I just brought it in even if I was going second. I ended up really liking the second Regulus. But I definitely did not want to main 2 because of bricking. This deck does play Ancient Gear Golem, so you do have to be conscious of bricks. Heat Wave, I kind of just threw this in there because it was ease of access. Yep, nope. Cards just, it'll win games sometimes, and otherwise it just stalls for a turn. 2 Lightning Storm, and Called By. Called By was for the hand trap heavy decks like Tenpai or Pearly or anything like that, so that way I can at least fight back. This deck isn't as weak to a lot of the softer hand traps like Veiler and Perm and Ash, but it hard loses to Droll because everything adds. So kind of wanted the coverage for that. But yeah, that's the deck. Ancient Gear is a lot of fun. If you have the cards, give it a shot. But yeah, thanks for watching. Remember to comment, rate, subscribe. Shout out to Four Horsemen Comics and Gaming sponsor, and Marshall again for hooking me up with the cards. Thanks for watching.